So, one of my pet peeves when it comes to podcasts and people who talk about different topics is that there's never an in depth identifying of what causes these debates. Like, for an example, the LeBron James and the Michael Jordan, who's the greatest of all time. Why is that one even an issue? Like, why are we even trying to break down which one is greater? Because we're talking about two different things, right? We're talking about one, different eras. And secondly, we're talking about two different types of players. That's black excellence. There can never just be truly us enjoying the fact that black people are doing great things. It always has to be some qualifier so that if I support Michael Jordan, then I'm diminishing LeBron James. And if I support LeBron James, I'm then diminishing Michael Jordan. And it's like we're in any other sport or anything that you identify that doesn't involve the greatness of black excellence, do you see that? When was the last time you asked who was the greatest golfer? Do you wonder if Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer was the greatest golfer? No, it only became an issue when Tiger Woods, a black golfer, then became close to breaking Jack Nicklaus' record. So then it was like, well, he can't be the greatest golfer because Jack Nicklaus still has two more wins. But before there was Tiger, no one cared who the greatest golfer was. We assumed that they were the great for their era, and people accepted that. And I'll give you another example. When was the last time that we asked, who's the greatest owner in the NFL? We have organizations where they blow drafts. They have organizations to where, like the Dallas Cowboys, they can't even sign their players. But we don't criticize the owner because we never criticize certain groups or races or people in power, but yet we will criticize anything that's black. I'll give you another example. When we start talking about the greatest quarterback ever, did we care who the greatest quarterback ever was before Patrick Mahomes? Because before then, did we say Manning was the greatest or Joe Montana was the greatest? We pretty much defaulted because Tom Brady had more rings, but we all know that Tom Brady isn't the most gifted quarterback in NFL history. Heck, I've never really seen him complete a pass over 30 yards. But then Mahomes comes, and we see him doing all these no-look passes. He's throwing 70 yards without his feet being set. And then when the clamor becomes that Patrick Mahomes is the best we ever seen, now here comes the debate saying, well, he has to get this amount of rings. He has to do these things before we consider him being great. But we didn't care that Joe Montana couldn't throw very far. Tom Brady couldn't throw very far. Heck, the best quarterback who, as far as throwing the furthest pass, was Dan Marino. And we pretty much leave him out. But at one time, he was the greatest passing leader in NFL history. So my point is that going back to the LeBron James and Michael Jordan argument, is that in the NBA, other than Larry Bird, there's no one else that we can say can even be in that conversation. So to create the controversy, to not just allow it to be a clean thing and say that all blacks are great in the NBA, we have to then say one is better than the other. Because if we did the top 10 of the greatest players of all time in the NBA, Larry Bird would be the only player that would be non-black. That would be something that wouldn't be a controversy. But then if we say out of the other 9 players that aren't white, the only way in which we can make that conversation interesting is to say which one's better than the next, even though the NBA has been around for over 70 years. And there's been many iterations of the NBA, rule changes, salary cap, the athleticism of players, better diets, more dedication. So if you have players now that have millions, and in the latest contract you have players that are making $500 million, don't you think that their greatness would be improved? But why are we arguing as far as who's better than the other? Why aren't we just appreciating that in every generation we can see greatness? But that's for a reason. Because in the end, you have one race of people who can actually claim greatness of 9 out of 10 players arguing amongst each other, as opposed to just saying in this particular sport, all excellence comes through black players. We have to end this debate as opposed to saying who's greater than the other and just say, isn't it great that for black people we can watch an NBA game and realize how much impact we have on the game and how much the stands would not be filled without this greatness of black players. And that is why in today's world, any European player that comes over and has a great season or looks like they may be emulating the talent and the skills of black players, now all of a sudden, in 3 or 4 years, become one of the greatest of all time. Why do you think that is? Is Luka Doncic as great as Magic Johnson? He's not. Is Joker as great as Kareem or Shaq or Wilt? He's not. I'm not saying that these guys aren't talented players. I'm just saying to you that when we start talking about the greatest of all time, what's the rush? The average NBA career lasts 13 years, and we're anointing these players in 4 and 5 years as being the greatest all time, but we're ignoring people who have played like Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Alex English, Hakeem Olajuwon, Dominique Wilkins, who played more than that and had more levels of greatness. We don't even assign that because as opposed to us wanting to celebrate the legacy of the NBA, which unfortunately for some would be black players, we now have to divide and allow us to achieve their greatness. So in the end of all this, when you start talking about a hot mic identifies that there's a need for change and what people aren't saying needs to be said. So all of you out there that want to continue this debate, just know the reason why is that you know it's something that cannot be solved. No one's going to agree one way or the other. You just like the fact that black excellence isn't celebrated, and that whole idea that whenever there's black achievement and black exceptionalism, we have to demean it by causing a controversy between greatness and excellence. But yet, when it comes to any other element of life that deals with any other races, we don't have those arguments. And I'll say this in conclusion, because I'm beating a dead horse. When was the last time that you asked yourself, out of all these billionaires that have these fantastic companies that govern our society, have you ever asked who's the greatest CEO of all time? No, because you will evaluate it based upon how much they're worth, and you will ignore that many of them can't even tie their own shoes. But you won't look at that aspect because you won't criticize wealth, but you will criticize race. And that's another hot mic moment.